We're going to be talking about the presence for the next several weeks at Believers Church. And Exodus 32 through 34 will be the backdrop for our discussion. So this video gives some brief background to this passage to set up the series. That said, even better than watching this video would be to read the entire book of Exodus leading up to our passage. Another option would be to read Exodus chapters 19, 20, and 24. And probably the third best thing is to watch this video, which will just quickly get you acquainted with the passage. But if you can't do all that reading right now, this video should help you get started. The background to our passage really starts with Abraham. Early in the Bible, we see that God and humanity were separated through human sin, but God still wanted to be connected with humanity, so he planned a rescue mission. His mission started by coming to Abraham and making him some promises. The two main promises God made were that he would give Abraham's family their very own land, and he would make Abraham's family into a great nation. Out of this family, God would bless everyone. So, Abraham has just one son, Isaac. Then Isaac has a son, Jacob. Then Jacob has 12 sons. Incidentally, God eventually gives Jacob the name Israel, which leads to the name Israel for the sons of Jacob. Eventually, Jacob, his 12 sons, and their kids end up moving to Egypt to escape a famine. And the family prospered there. But after a few generations, things went badly for the sons of Israel. At the beginning of Exodus, we read that a new leader rose to power in Egypt who didn't know Israel's family. And this leader made them into slaves. And so Israel's family called on God. And God remembered the promise he had made to Abraham and his descendants. In response to their prayers, God appeared to a man named Moses and appointed him to go to Egypt and rescue Israel from slavery. Moses was then to lead them to the land where they would become a great nation. And so, God delivered the sons of Israel from Egypt in dramatic fashion. And God led them out of Egypt toward the land he had originally promised Abraham. And on the way, God was with them. He appeared to them as a cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. It was actually a tent that Moses would set up, which he called the tent of meeting, where God would descend and actually converse with him to give him instructions. Eventually, God led Moses and the sons of Israel to a mountain. Here at this mountain, God appeared to all of Israel. His appearance was like a cloud and like a raging fire, with lightning, thunder, and blasting trumpets. And here God talked to Israel. God told them he wanted to live with them, but they needed to know how to relate to him. So God called Moses up the mountain to explain the terms of their relationship to him. God actually wrote these terms on stone tablets and gave them to Moses. But while Moses and God were talking, there was a problem back at Israel's camp. And this is where our passage starts. Moses had been on the mountain with God for almost 40 days. We read in Exodus 32 that, to Israel, this was taking way too long. They wanted to see the fulfillment of God's promise to have their own land and become their own nation. Aaron was Moses' second-in-command guy, and he was still back at the camp with Israel. So the Israelites pressured Aaron to give them a God who would lead them to these promises. So Aaron made an idol, and the Israelites worshipped it. And God saw it and told Moses to head down the mountain to intervene. Moses came down from the mountain to see what was happening. He became so angry that he smashed the tablets God had written on. And God was frustrated too. In fact, he said this. In this passage, God tells Moses that Israel can enter the promised land. They can have the fulfillment of the promise he made to Abraham, to have their own land and become a great nation. But the only thing is, God wouldn't go with them. So here is how Moses responded to God. And we believe that Moses' response here is the key to this passage and is the center point of this upcoming series on the presence of God. Moses said to God, "If your presence does not go with us, do not lead us up from here." Moses was unwilling to receive the promises of God without the presence of God. And we feel the same way about the Believers Church community. So join us for the next several weeks as we pursue God's presence together.